wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome to another episode of Morning Baraka. Today we are mourning in the sense that we are commemorating the martyrdom of our holy seventh Imam, Imam al-Kadhim alayhi salam. Over the last couple of days you might have seen on social media the millions of people that have flocked towards the grave of Imam al-Kadhim alayhi salam in Baghdad in Kadhimiyya, all pledging their allegiance to Bab al-Hawa'ij, the door of our needs, Imam al-Kadhim alayhi salam. We'll be dissecting his life, his legacy, his merits, his loyalties, and all of the lessons that we can learn from Imam al-Kadhim alayhi salam in today's episode, which we are dedicating entirely to our holy, infallible Imam alayhi salam. So here's what's coming up on today's show. First up, and here to discuss the life and legacy of Imam al-Kadhim alayhi salam, but focusing on the term of taqiyya, student of the Najaf Seminary, brother or Sheikh Ibrahim Ansari, graces the Morning Baraka studios. On this day returns as well with a historical and a sad look into the life of Imam al-Kadhim alayhi salam as we commemorate his martyrdom. And we end our show today with the Dua of Tuesday recited by Ahmed al-Rakabi from the holy shrine of Imam al-Kadhim alayhi salam. So stay tuned for Tuesday, the 6th of February, the 25th of Rajab, a day which is a sad day for all of the Shia of Amir al-Mu'mineen, Ali ibn Abi Talib. But fine-tune your hearts and minds as we dedicate this Morning Baraka session to Bab al-Hawa'ij, Imam Musa ibn Ja'far al-Kadhim alayhi salam. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Welcome to the show. Now, the word taqiyya, al-taqiyya, often riddled with controversy and probably misconceptions, literally means concealing or disguising one's belief, convictions, ideas, feelings, opinions, or even strategies at a time of imminent danger, whether now or later in time, to save oneself from physical and or mental injury. A one-word translation that we can probably give to this word of taqiyya is dissimulation. Now, it's a subject that often fuels debates and discussions around the world, and definitely relevant to dissect and discuss today. Yet, what is the relevance of taqiyya and Imam al-Kadhim alayhi salam? So here to analyze the concept of taqiyya and its link with the Imam is prominent Hawza student and a seeker of knowledge in the seminaries of Najaf, Sheikh Ibrahim al-Ansari. Sheikhna, assalamu alaikum. It's a pleasure to have you on the show. Azamullah ajurkum.
وأجوركم أعظم إن شاء الله. Allah يحفظكم. The honor is mine to be here. First and foremost, we say Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, wa salatu wa salam ala Muhammad wa alihi al-Tahirin. We send our deepest of condolences to the Imam of our time, our Maraja, our scholars, yourselves, your family, and the whole Islamic Ummah on the martyrdom of our seventh Imam, Imam Musa ibn Ja'far alayhi afdal salatu wa salam.
Ahsantum, Sheikhna. So I guess that today we wanted to discuss a concept or a term which is, as I mentioned in the introduction, is is polarizing, because there are Sunni references and Sunni, I would say, explanations of this term, and there are obviously Shia explanations of this term. But as a general kind of overview, what is taqiyya?
So first of all, I think the introduction that you had given in itself was an excellent introduction. What you find is between the Sunni schools of thought and the Shia schools of thought, generally speaking, there wasn't a big debate on the permissibility of taqiyya.
Okay.
This debate only increased after the time of Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab, which is why you find that the Wahhabi sect are actually the main advocates against taqiyya. Whereas before then, you will find multiple cases where Sunni scholars would perform taqiyya. In fact, even during the time of Harun al-Rashid, the jurists of his time would use taqiyya to save themselves in times when Harun wanted a specific ruling. And that ruling was against the general ruling, but he wanted for a specific, in a specific case to do something specific. So he'd go to one of the jurists and they would give him a ruling based on what he desires so that they do not get killed. This is one. Then you find even Khayzaran, the mother of Harun, she sends a letter to one of the jurists and she says to him that what is your opinion or what is the verdict on this specific issue? Keeping in mind that I would love for the verdict to be so and so. So he gives her what he loves, what she loves, sorry. So historically speaking, you find that taqiyya in itself was not very much debated, and as you introduced it, it is an issue where an individual would conceal their faith in a state where they might be in danger.
Okay.
Now this in itself is something that is aqli, it is logical. I mean, logically, innately, an individual, when they feel that they are in danger, they would be in a state where they would either conceal their faith or no, they want to go for bravery and they do specific action that causes them a death or martyrdom or whatever they want to call it themselves. So that is in terms of the debate, that is in terms of the definition. And of course, as jurisprudential debate is much bigger. When can taqiyya be used? A person might come forward and say, well, hold on a second, we have amr bil ma'ruf nahi anil munkar. How are you going to use taqiyya? Yeah, okay, amr bil ma'ruf and nahi anil munkar comes with conditions. You can go back to Risal al-Amali, you'll find the conditions of amr bil ma'ruf nahi anil munkar, and it is up to the mukallaf to then decide, is this a case where I use taqiyya, or is this a case where I go all out in amr bil ma'ruf, enjoining good and forbidding from evil?
So you mentioned amr bil ma'ruf and nahi anil munkar. I think where does iman and your strength in the belief that Allah is always going to protect you, the imams, you know, they you know, we'll get into whether the imams actually practice taqiyya or not, I'm not sure, we'll get into that discussion later, but what's the relationship between iman, having faith, and taqiyya? Does it go hand in hand, or are they kind of negating each other?
I mean, we can either speak Quranically, or we can speak logically, or we can speak through narrations. If we speak through the Quran, iman goes hand in hand with taqiyya.
Okay.
And many times you find an individual that comes forward and says the Shia hold on to the ambiguous verses. No, we use the clear verses. No ambiguity at all.
Okay.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. وَقَالَ رَجُلٌ مُؤْمِنٌ من آل فرعون يكتم إيمانه أتقتلون رجلا أن يقول ربي الله وقد جاءكم بالبينات من ربكم.
That's very clear.
It can't be clearer than that. Yeah. A man from the family of Pharaoh who is a mu'min, who is a believer, يكتم إيمانه, he is concealing his faith, yeah. Said so and so. Then احنا هسه, first of all, we come and say, for debate's sake, this Allah Azza wa Jal in this verse wants to say that this person is a believer and hence he said so and so. No, I say, hold on a second. Allah Azza wa Jal, it would have been enough for him to say وَقَالَ رَجُلٌ مِنْ آلِ فِرْعَوْنَ يَكْتُمُ إِيمَانَهُ.
Yeah.
Yet he decided to add a description of this man, which is mu'minun. This person is what? A believer. وَلِذَلِكَ, because of that, you will find that Allah Azza wa Jal would use this specific description to make sure that an individual knows that iman goes hand in hand with taqiyya. We give one more example, which is in a verse in Surah An-Nahl, verse number 106. Allah Azza wa Jal says, for those that believed and after their belief they disbelieve, a certain punishment is going to come to them, but he adds an exception. إِلَّا مَنْ أُكْرِهَ وَقَلْبُهُ مُطْمَئِنٌ بِالْإِيمَانِ. Okay. Except for the one who is compelled, who is in a state where they are forced to show something else, and their heart is what? مُطْمَئِنٌ بِالْإِيمَانِ, reassured in faith. As now we come and we know that itmi'nan is one of the highest levels of iman. So how is it that a person can be in taqiyya and yet hold one of the highest levels of iman? Yeah. Therefore they go, not only do they go hand in hand, clearly there is a one of the highest levels of iman is to actually have some sort of taqiyya. And even when you look further into asbab al-nuzul, why this verse was revealed, you will find that a group of companions, they come to the Prophet, Ammar ibn Yasir, he just rejected La ilaha illallah, he rejected Muhammad Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. What do we do with him? He said, oh, hold on a second, there's an exception. Allah Azza wa Jal said, إِلَّا مَنْ أُكْرِهَ وَقَلْبُهُ مُطْمَئِنٌ bil-iman. First of all, the Prophet is saying to them, he was compelled and his heart is reassured in faith.
So these are examples of historical the historical examples of taqiyya being practiced.
This is a historical example, this is a Quranic example, these are examples, the specific examples I'm trying to use here are there to show you how faith go hand in hand with it.
Right.
Why? Because, for example, when Allah Azza wa Jal says his heart is reassured in faith, it's different to me saying his heart is reassured in faith. It means it is definite.
Yeah.
Even then, the Prophet didn't have enough. He wanted to add more to these people that are. He said, and by the way, khaf abbalkum, in the terms that we say, if you have any more doubts, Ammar is filled with iman, head to toe. Mali'un bil iman, min ra'sihi ila qadamih. So he did taqiyya. A verse came down and said, إِلَّا مَنْ أُكْرِهَ وَقَلْبُهُ مُطْمَئِنٌ بِالْإِيمَانِ. And on top of that, the narration says, and he is filled with iman from head to toe. And not only that, we know the iman of Ammar ibn Yasir to an extent where the Prophet would say, تَقْتُلُكَ الْفِئَ الْبَاغِيَةِ. So he became the reason why a person in history is able to distinguish truthfulness from falsehood. And go back into history and look at the deviant sect that killed Ammar ibn Yasir.
So what we can derive from that is that if Ammar ibn Yasir was committing an act that had a lack of iman, as in taqiyya, then three things wouldn't happen. Allah wouldn't have released or shown a verse saying that his heart was assured in iman, and then the Prophet wouldn't say, or the narrations wouldn't say, Ammar has iman from head to toe. And third, the Prophet wouldn't say that al-fi'at al-baghi are going to kill you. That's essentially what we can do. So where can you explain the the Wahhabi look on taqiyya? Where does this all come from? And why is that? What are the arguments against taqiyya, if you can say?
Generally speaking, if we look back into history, you find that the Wahhabi sect in itself, Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab specifically, when he came forward, he came in a manner where he was not just against the Shia school of thought, by the way, even against the Sunnis, which is why even if you look back at history, by the way, you'll find that there was a coalition between him and between Al Saud at the time that they were there.
Right.
And Al Saud, in order to gain power, they needed a jurist that could help them, and therefore, at the time, they had an agreement with Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab that the jurisprudential issues are yours, and the governorship is ours. You give a fatwa that bay'ah is wajib towards us and we do our thing. And you can, in that case, Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab saw a opportunity that for him, he can put his theology forward. And which is why you find that the Wahhabi sect from there started to emerge. People, of course, al-nas ala dini mulukihim, as the method would say, that the people are on the religion of their kings. And this is now the religion that has been put forward to them, so people start to follow it. And of course, after that, they moved to Egypt at a short period of time when Al Saud lost power in Saudi Arabia, etc. Now you might ask me, what is this history behind it? This history allows us to understand Muhammad wasn't just there against the Shias, rather he wanted to bring a specific look in Islam that is harsh, that is clear, and that uses, if we want to say, the clear verses in their literal meanings, when we understand that the clear verses actually have many meanings behind them that are ambiguous to the one who does not understand them. Which is why the Quran says, لا يمسه إلا المطهرون. And mess is different to lems. Lems is to touch. Mess is to understand. So no one except for the purified are able to understand it. So of course, when a person comes to look at these verses, so he sees himself in a state of power. He sees himself in a state where he can propagate towards a specific line of Islam that wasn't present before him. what do I need to do? I need to hit certain things that different sects were known by. For example, the Shia were known to propagate taqiyya more openly in its terms than the other sects. The other sects would perform it, but it would go in their fiqh. If you go back to their jurisprudence, you'll find that they use different words to describe it, but they have it in their fiqh. So what did he do? He said, no, I'm going to hit this word because this is something that the followers of Ali and Fatima were known by. That is it.
Yeah.
There's no jurisprudential discussion behind it. There's no nothing behind it. The reality is this is
It's a political move.
It's political move. لا أكثر ولا أقل. It's in simple terms, which is why you find, for example, at times when even other issues like mut'a come up and etc. These types of issues, for them it doesn't really matter because they have the exact same صيغة that applies to different names, if you like, of mut'a. But no, this is a specific thing that the Shia became known by in their fiqh books, so I need to hit this specific word.
So what are the examples of, I guess my question is, in this day and age now, does taqiyya exist? It does. Maybe the question is a bit weird, but what I'm saying is, can you perform taqiyya now? Are there examples of performing taqiyya now? And do you have to perform taqiyya now?
So from one aspect, in terms of do you have to perform taqiyya, do you not have to perform taqiyya, it's up to every mukallaf to go back to their jurist and they will inform them of the hukum shar'i there. But a general overview.
Yeah.
A general overview is that taqiyya, we have narrations, taqiyya stays until the rise of al-qa'im. Okay. So this is one aspect.
Yeah.
The other aspect is that taqiyya in itself, maybe in terms of specific books, in terms of specific narrations, the reality is they're not hidden, they are there. So for those that say the Shia are still practicing taqiyya, no, if you want to look at jurisprudence, if you want to look at aqa'id, our books are there. And they're all available online PDF, but they can't get easier than that. That is from one aspect. Then we come to individual use of taqiyya. Today, I live during the Ba'ath time of Saddam, and I'm walking in the streets of Baghdad, and a person comes to me and he says to me, what's your name? And my name, for example, is Ali. I tell him Umar, he's going to let me go through. This is an act of what? Taqiyya.
Yeah.
But this is an individual act of taqiyya. So we need to also understand that taqiyya doesn't just apply to fiqh, aqa'id, etc. No, there are individual acts of taqiyya where a person must save themselves from danger, or they will choose to save themselves from danger, which is why you will find during the Ba'ath time there was a lot of taqiyya, people would change their names. Some families would name their sons specific names in order, for example, you find on the Shia of Iraq, there are many people who are known, who are called Umar. There is a famous poet actually, Umar Farooq, a very famous poet. He writes eulogies, and he lives in a place that was mostly Sunni at the time.
Right.
So their fathers would call them specific names out of what? Out of taqiyya.
Shaykhna, we're still talking 20, 30 years ago. I'm talking right now where there's...
The same applies. Because now, for example, now I might be in a state where, for example, currently, alhamdulillah wa shukr, in Iraq, the government isn't going to come and kill you because you are of a specific sect.
Okay.
But then I come to, although I don't want to speak about topics like this, however, just a general, a quick hint to it. At the moment, we live in a specific, we are currently in a specific country that propagates specific immoral acts. Publicly in my workplace, can I publicly denounce them? I'm not saying I need to associate myself with them, but concealing faith doesn't always have to mean showing support in a specific act. Once I'm using Amr bil Ma'ruf and Nahy anil Munkar, and I say, hold on a second, this specific immoral acts that you are propagating for is haram. It is not allowed. And once I say, I'm going to stay quiet about this matter, I'm just going to go, you want to know my pronouns? My pronouns is Mr. Khalsat al-Salfa. This is a form of taqiyya. Taqiyya, the thing is, taqiyya
so
in
it's
itself...
not because someone is in danger that you conceal the faith.
No, the problem is because it can cause danger. Because if I do speak out against it, what's going to happen? Let's say I work for one of the biggest companies here.
Yeah.
And I show... clearly that I'm against a specific ideology.
They'll sack you.
I'm going to get sacked. I was on a 70k salary that's going to go. I have a family of 4 or 5 that I need to take care of, etc. So I am now in a state where I need to conceal specific ideas and specific theologies. Why? In order to save myself from the financial aspect, once from the mental aspect, once from physical harm.
This is quite complicated, Sheikh, because then where does Amr bil Ma'roof and Nahy anil Munkar come into
Conditions.
play? Because it's wajib, right?
This is why I always go back and say, look at the conditions of Amr bil Ma'roof and Nahy anil Munkar. For example, we'll mention a few of them. Amr bil Ma'roof, Nahy anil Munkar. When is it wajib? It is wajib, first of all, if the person in front of you that is performing the munkar is constant in performing that munkar. Meaning, a very simple example, this is the month of Ramadan as an example, and a person is drinking water. I don't know if they are constantly fatir during Shahr Ramadan. I don't speak to them. But I see them every single day. They are fatir, and I know that they do not have an excuse. I can come and I can say to them, Tara, by the way, Shahr Ramadan, fast, etc. This is one aspect. The second aspect is when I am safe from danger. Amr bil Ma'roof and Nahy an Munkar applies. If there is a possibility of danger, Amr bil Ma'roof and Nahy an Munkar isn't wajib anymore. So the exact opposite of what we are talking about in terms of taqiyya. The third is that the person you are speaking to, the person you are enjoining good and forbidding evil with, is a person who will listen to you, not a person who will disregard what you say. If you know that person, or if you know there's a possibility of that person, they are going to disregard what you say, Amr bil Ma'roof and Nahy an Munkar isn't wajib upon you. So look at the conditions of Amr bil Ma'roof and Nahy an Munkar, and just like Iman goes hand in hand with taqiyya, Amr bil Ma'roof and Nahy an Munkar goes hand in hand with taqiyya.
Fascinating discussion. I think the relevance of it when it comes to this day and age, I actually didn't think of it in a way where taqiyya applies even when you're in a very safe environment or a safe situation. I always thought that whenever there is danger on you, you conceal your faith to keep your life, because life is precious and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants to keep your life in many circumstances, right? Even to the extent that if there is, you probably know this better than I do, but if there is no food, no water, and the only option is to eat haram food, then you have to eat haram food, right? So it's
interesting. Which is why there's a case aslan in history with Imam al-Kadhim alayhi salam, and today we are remembering him. There's a case where a person, where he praises the Umayyad dynasty. And he says to him, are you the one who used these lines of poetry to praise them? He said, yes, but it was in taqiyya. He said, that's fine. Taqiyya is allowed even upon drinking alcohol. فهذا in the case that you are mentioning now in terms of food and drink.
Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, it's a really, really interesting discussion. We're going to transcend or transition into the relevance of taqiyya to the life of Imam al-Kadhim alayhi salam, and you've just alluded to a small example of that, Shaykhna. So we're going to expand on that example, inshallah, after the break. We'll see you in a couple of minutes.
Water is the key to life, yet millions have no access to this basic human necessity. Imam Hussein Charity is building water wells in Pakistan. Help the survival of many who can't have this basic human right, those who are at risk of disease and even worse, death. Imam Hussein Charity has a 6-month guarantee of completion of each water well project. Help transform the lives of the believers who live without water. Donate today.
Welcome back, dear viewers. Once again, I remind you that if you are just joining us, this show, Morning Baraka, today is dedicated to the life and the legacy and the martyrdom of Imam al-Kadhim alayhi salam. Before I transition into the second part of my interview with Sheikh Ibrahim al-Ansari, the poet Nouri Sardar comes and describes Imam al-Kadhim in a very unique way, and it says, is it the one with no coffin? Is it the one killed in prison? Which do I mourn? And am I torn between desert and jail? On the poisoned and imprisoned, on al-Kadhim I wail. My eyes mountains where rivers flow, and I can't catch them in my hand. They flow to soothe the martyr's thirst, left and unburied on scorching sand. But suddenly the tears, they change course, and at first I don't understand till they flow toward a dark jail where even light itself is banned. My tears find their way to a cell, and by a fallen saint they stand. Till they rise up and cry a scream, Al-Kadhim was killed on this land. An explosion that shatters skies, just like mountains crumble my eyes. An eruption of emotion on Kadhim my tears hail. On the poisoned and imprisoned, on Al-Kadhim I wail. I ask about his tragedies, the answers make my hair turn grey. Taken from prison to prison, until for his own death he'd pray. In the prison of El-Sindi, they would even take light away. He'd not know what time to worship, because he'd not know night from day. Shackled and made to stand for days. When he'd sway, earth with him would sway. What kind of torture makes God's proof? Cry out, O Lord, take me away. With each request, he'd raise his arm. A hand replied, slapped our Imam. How much torture, the eyes rupture and their muscles turn frail. On the poisoned and imprisoned, on Al-Kadhim I wail. Ali ibn Suwaid asked him, O Imam, when will you return? Al-Kadhim replied, on Friday, and for days Friday they would yearn. They awaited Sindi's inmates. He had wounds from which pain would learn. A fire to see their beloved, such a fire will always burn. What they saw broke Jibrail's wings and made the earth stop its turn. On this bridge of Baghdad they brought Imam Kadhim in a coffin. In his coffin, Kadhim in chains, poisoned and pale are his remains. And they cry out, Shia, come out, today all of you fail. On the poisoned and imprisoned, on Al-Kadhim I wail. Many thanks to the poet, Nouri Sardar. Welcome back, and if you've just joined us, we are delighted to have a seminary of Najaf students, prominent students within the seminaries of Najaf, the Hawza al-Almiya in Najaf in Iraq, Sheikh Ibrahim al-Ansari. In the first half of this interview, it's more of a discussion, we talked about taqiyya and essentially the overview of taqiyya, some very, very interesting facts regarding the concept of taqiyya in this day and age. However, we're now linking the concept of taqiyya, Shaykhna, to Imam al-Kadhim alayhi salam. So I guess in a nutshell, are there any examples of Imam al-Kadhim and taqiyya in that sense? Why did the Imam actually use taqiyya?
The examples are many. I'll answer why, the why first, because if you understand the why, then the examples start to make sense.
Okay.
During the time of Imam al-Baqir and Imam al-Sadiq, this is clear to many people, that taqiyya decreased a lot. And Imam al-Baqir and Imam al-Sadiq had obviously the chance to expand the true theology of Al-Muhammad and the true jurisprudential issues of Al-Muhammad, etc. Until there was the Umayyad dynasty became weak, of course, and this is why Imam al-Baqir and Imam al-Sadiq were able to do such a thing. Until the Abbasid dynasty takes over. The Abbasid dynasty, when they first take over, they remain weak. The first of the Abbasid caliphs is As-Saffah. As-Saffah died in the year 132 after Hijrah. Imam al-Kadhim was born 128, so he was 4 when he died. During this time, Imam al-Sadiq alayhi afdalu salatu wasalam still had the opportunity to expand the theology of Al-Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon them all, until after As-Saffah comes his son, known as Abu Ja'far al-Mansur al-Diwaniqi, who is the individual that poisoned Imam Ja'far al-Sadiq alayhi afdalu salatu wasalam. The reason why he was able to do such a thing is because he gained a lot of power. And al-Mansur al-Diwaniqi throughout history is known. He was a very strong ruler in his own right. And this is why the Abbasid dynasty began to expand, and it became much stronger, and people were fearful of it. To the extent where, when he poisoned the Imam Ja'far al-Sadiq alayhi afdalu salatu wasalam, imagine what power he had, that he wasn't just ready to poison the Imam. No, he also wanted to poison the successor of the Imam.
Oh.
To where he said, find out who will succeed Ja'far ibn Muhammad and bring him to me so that I can kill him. So imagine what kind of power he has. This is where taqiyya starts. Again, in the life of Imam al-Kadhim. And who set the foundations for it? Imam Ja'far al-Sadiq. You might ask me how? Imam Ja'far al-Sadiq would leave a will behind. There are 5 individuals and one of whom you can choose to succeed me. The first is Al-Mansur al-Duwaniqi.
Ajib.
The second is Muhammad ibn Sulaiman, the governor of Medina at the time.
Yeah.
The third is Abdullah, the elder son of Imam al-Sadiq. The fourth is Musa ibn Ja'far, al-Kadhim alayhi afdal salatu wassalam. The fifth is Hamida, the mother of Imam Musa ibn Ja'far.
So he named 5 people, any one of them could be the
Any
successor.
one of them could be the
And one of them
successor.
is the Khalifa of the time.
One of them is the Khalifa of the time, as you just mentioned. So of course now Al-Mansur, after what he just said, he has one of 2 options. Either he leaves killing the successor all in all, or he kills all 5 of them. And if he was to, one of them would be himself.
Yeah.
This is where you find that taqiyya started. But imagine the danger that the Imam was in, such that Imam al-Sadiq had to do such a thing. So this is the why. This is why taqiyya had to start. Imam al-Kadhim alayhi afdal salati wassalam, before I get into specific examples, even from his title, there is taqiyya. You might ask me how. The most famous of his title, other than Bab al-Hawa'ij and the other titles that he has, such as Abdul Salih, is Kadhim al-Ghayth. The one who holds his rage, not anger, is a common mistake sometimes we make. It is
Anger
not
is just a low level. Rage is a higher level of anger?
A higher level of anger, and also more physical. It has more of a physical nature, in the sense that anger, I can be angry and not show it.
Yeah.
But rage is, if you like, when a vein pops out.
Okay.
Rage is when there are physical changes to a specific individual. Hence why you would say Allah yaghdab, but you can't say Allah ightab. So you can say Allah is angry, such as in the narration in regards to Fatima al-Zahra, yaghdab li ghadabiha. He becomes angry for her anger. But you can't say ightab. Why? Because Allah Azza wa Jal would never have physical changes. Wal-'iyadhu billah.
Okay, interesting.
Hence why ghayth is different to anger. Imam al-Kadhim, of course he got angry during his life. And it is of the sifat of a believer to be angry. Al-mu'min sari'ul ghadab wa sari'ul rida. These are of the characteristics of a believer. They become angry fast and they calm down fast. So you can't say Imam al-Kadhim never got angry. But he never was in a state of rage. Now you might tell me, why was this title specifically given to him? None of the Imams raged. None of them showed this type of issue. Amir al-Mu'mineen at a time when he is with Amr ibn Wadd al-Amiri, and he curses Amir al-Mu'mineen, and he tries to spit at the holy face of Amir al-Mu'mineen. He walks around him and he doesn't kill him instantly. Why? Because he didn't want to do it out of rage. So therefore the Imams all were kadhimin al-ghayth. Why was Imam Musa ibn Ja'far then singled out in this specific title? The simple answer is he was potentially the most provoked Imam in our history. Look at the time of the Abbasids, during the time of Imam afdal salatu wassalam. Something that stopped after Muawiyah.
Okay.
And even then, the cursing of Fatima al-Zahra wasn't even known during the Umayyad dynasty in the way that it was known during some of the Abbasid caliphs. And that would cause any lover to rage, let alone any Shia, let alone the Imam himself. So he was kadhim al-ghayth in that sense. The second is he was provoked in manners where his Shia were imprisoned with the disbelievers. During al-Mahdi al-Abbasi, for example. Mahdi al-Abbasi, we say in Arabic, he did a hamla, like he took it upon himself as governor to take away all the zanadiqa, all the disbelievers, and put them in prisons. Of them are those who showed any sort of Shia ideology. They were put in prisons. The Imam is in a state where he needs to keep his rage. Why? The moment he was to show it with the strength that they had, they would kill the Imam and they would kill the Shia. Which is why you find, for example, the most famous uprising during the time of Imam al-Kadhim alayhi salam is the uprising of Al-Hussein ibn Ali in the Battle of Fakh. Al-Hussein ibn Ali isn't an ordinary human being. Hussein ibn Ali was loved by the Ahlul Bayt to the extent where Imam Jawad alayhi wasalam would say that there is no tragedy greater upon us, the Ahlul Bayt, other than the tragedy of Al-Hussein ibn Ali, the one who was killed in Fakh after Al-Hussein ibn Ali, my grandfather, in Karbala. So you can imagine what kind of tragedy that in itself was. Yet Imam al-Kadhim showed no public support to it and showed no association with that uprising.
Is that out of taqiyya?
That's taqiyya. That is taqiyya.
Interesting.
If he did, first of all, they lost in the Battle of Fakh. Al-Hussein ibn Ali, what was done to his body is similar to what they had done to the body of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein alayhi afdal salati wassalam. Some of those that remained from the Battle of Fakh fled towards North Africa, which is where you find the first Shia government was formed in North Africa. And in fact, the current king of Morocco is from his offspring. So this is something that you find as well. Anyway, so this is the why.
I was going to say...
Yeah, I felt like you were going to speak.
No, I just wanted to get into, I guess, examples, because the Imam is showing examples of taqiyya, which is fantastically put. What about his companions? Because let's just say he is an Imam and he knows what to do, he has the wisdom. How do the companions of Imam al-Kadhim then act, and what do they do when it comes to, in relation to taqiyya?
So from one aspect, some of the questions that were asked to the Imam, they were answered by the Imam in taqiyya. And just before we finish our talk today, just remind me, because I just want to add something towards the end to show why this was the case and how at the end of his life, he actually left taqiyya, towards the very end of his life.
Okay.
Just remind me of that. But so first of all, from his answers, he showed taqiyya in some of his answers. The other is some of his companions worked for the government of Harun, and those that worked for the government of Harun, he ordered them to be in taqiyya. And the famous example we have from the companions of Imam Musa ibn Ja'far is Ali ibn Yaqtin. Ali ibn Yaqtin, that famous story that many people have heard of his wudu. When he asks Imam Musa ibn Ja'far, he says, do I wipe my feet or do I wash them? Imam Musa ibn Ja'far gives him a detailed answer in terms of how to wash his face and how to wash his ears and how to wash, including washing the feet 3 times. During that time, Harun, his spies were telling him that this individual, Ali ibn Yaqtin, is of the followers of Musa ibn Ja'far. He said, the way that I will find out is to look at his wudu.
Okay.
So he came that day, he looked at the wudu of Ali ibn Yaqtin, and he saw that he washed his feet 3 times. He said, no, he's one of us. Then Imam al-Kadhim sent him a letter in which he said to him, oh Ali ibn Yaqtin, now go back to washing your face, washing your right arm, washing your left arm, wiping your head and wiping your feet.
Subhanallah.
So this is a form of taqiyya.
Did Ali ibn Yaqtin know that washing the feet wasn't the right way? Was he aware that Imam al-Kadhim was telling him, look, do this because this might happen to you, and then after change?
He didn't say because this is going to happen to you. However, he knew that he was wiping his feet before then, and he was with Imam Musa ibn Ja'far before then, and he is one of the closest companions of Imam Musa ibn Ja'far, Ali ibn Yaqtin.
But because of his senior position, he told him, listen, do it this way.
Do it this way, so that if Harun was to look, and he knew that Harun is going to come to look, so he saved him, and that was a form of taqiyya. Another form of taqiyya that is more apparent, also from Ali ibn Yaqtin, is imagine Ali ibn Yaqtin was using taqiyya in a manner where he became one of the most loved people in the palace towards Harun. Ali ibn Yaqtin, the Shia of Imam Musa ibn Ja'far, was one of the most loved individuals in the palace of Harun to Harun. To an extent where one day he would gift him a garment, it seems to be a shirt or something like that. He gifted him, let's say a shirt for now. He took that shirt, and because of the state that Imam Musa ibn Ja'far was in, he gave that shirt to Imam Musa ibn Ja'far in order for him to cover himself in neat and tidy clothing. One day, a person who was with Ali ibn Yaqtin gets fired from the palace or leaves the palace. He was with Ali ibn Yaqtin, he knows what Ali ibn Yaqtin was doing, he had his eye on him. He said, do you know what? I'm going to inform Harun of everything. He goes to Harun, He says to him, by the way, this Ali ibn Yaqtin, that you gifted him a shirt and he did this and this. Do you know what he does with your gifts? He said to him, what does he do? He said, he gives it to Musa ibn Ja'far, your prisoner. Harun became furious. Bring me Ali ibn Yaqtin now. Ali ibn Yaqtin comes to him. Harun asks him, he says, do you remember the shirt that I gifted you? He said, yes, of course.
Where is it?
He said, where is it? He said, I put it in my house in a box that I have locked, and in the box I have put a very nice scent, some sort of perfume, and every time I wake up, I open the box and smell it, and every time I go back to sleep, I open the box and I smell it and I wipe my face with it out of tabarruk, because you gave this to me. Harun wasn't going to take his word for it. He said, go and bring it to me. So he takes his soldiers with him, and this is of the miracles of the time of Imam Musa ibn Ja'far. They found it within a box in his house, put with some scent. It was neat and tidy in that box. Harun says what to Ali ibn Yaqtin? He says, by Allah, from today I will never believe anyone that says you are of the Shia of Musa ibn Ja'far.
Really?
This is an example of...
So you mentioned Harun, and I guess he was in a miraculous way tricked in that way, but did the Imam really call him Amir al-Mu'mineen?
Yes.
Okay.
But I really hope that after such an introduction, and after understanding the concept of taqiyya, and after understanding the political nature of his time, that this doesn't become something that might shock some of the lovers of Imam Musa ibn Ja'far. Especially, actually, if you look at the conversation in which he called Harun Amir al-Mu'mineen, you will find that he actually used it in a manner where he would potentially be in great danger. And this is of the introductions we give to taqiyya. Why? Because Harun said to him, Ya Musa ibn Ja'far, I have specific questions that have been in my heart for a very long time. And I want someone to answer them. Imam Musa ibn Ja'far says what to him? He says to him, I will answer them if you grant me safety. Yeah. Meaning what? He knows that the question he is going to ask him is something that's going to put him in danger.
Yeah.
If you grant me safety. What does he say to him, Harun? He says to him, you are granted my safety and you have been known as a truthful one, so I will grant you the safety if you leave taqiyya, that which you, the sons of Fatima, have been known by.
So he mentions taqiyya.
He mentions taqiyya. Yeah. Harun says, if you leave taqiyya, that you, the sons of Fatima, were known by. Look at what he answers him here. He says to him, O Amir al-Mu'mineen, ask and I will answer. First of all, it's an indication to us that even then he was going to potentially use some taqiyya.
Yeah.
So the Shia that can read, understand that, okay, he agreed, Harun asked him, don't use taqiyya. His agreement to Harun was in a manner where he softened his heart towards him.
Okay.
Because why? He's talking to Harun, and Harun obviously is prideful, and suddenly he called him Amir al-Mu'mineen. He calmed him down a bit. And secondly, it is for us to know that he is still going to use some sort of taqiyya within this. It's not going to be a full answer. And when you understand the question he was going to ask, you understand why. He says to him that Abdullah had two brothers whom we come from, Abu Talib and Al-Abbas. Why is it that you, the sons of Abu Talib, became closer? Although we come in the same daraja, the same level in terms of closeness to the Prophet. He said, no, we are closer. The Imam said to him, no, we are closer. He said, how is that? He said to him, Abu Talib and Abdullah were from the same mother and father, whereas Al-Abbas and Abdullah were only from the same father. And hence we are closer to Muhammad ibn Abdullah, the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, after which he asks him a bunch of other questions. But here he was in a state of danger. Let me actually mention one thing. Al-Hadi, so Al-Mahdi al-Abbasi is the father of Harun.
Yep.
He became the Khalifa after Al-Mansur al-Diwaniqi.
Yep.
After Al-Mahdi al-Abbasi, his son Al-Hadi al-Abbasi became the Khalifa.
Yep.
He stayed for 1 year. There was a coup. They took him out and Harun became Khalifa. When Al-Hadi was killed, and some of the historians would say he died a normal death. No, he was killed. And of the people that actually plotted for his death is his brother, his mother, and Yahya al-Barmaki.
Yep.
All three of them
Yep.
plotted for his death.
Yep.
Al-Hadi al-Abbasi.
Is it something to do with Arab and Iranian descent or something along those lines?
There was some sort of talk. No, that was with the sons of Harun.
Okay.
This was more because Harun was more loved and they saw him to be cleverer than his...
Yeah, he's more intelligent.
More intelligent, time in Najaf makes me forget my vocabulary.
It's okay.
Then his brother Al-Hadi.
Yeah.
And also the Barmaki family were closer to Harun than they were to Al-Hadi.
Yeah.
Now, when Al-Hadi was killed, Imam Musa ibn Ja'far writes a letter to his mother, Khayzaran.
Yeah.
What does he say to her? It's a letter of condolences. He writes a letter of condolences for the passing of your son Al-Hadi, and congratulating her for the new political position of Harun.
Okay.
And this, by the way, is muwathaq in history. 100% this letter was sent by Imam Musa ibn Ja'far to Khayzaran.
Okay.
A scholar by the name of Sheikh al-Bahrani.
Yeah.
He writes a book. The book is called Al-Awalim. Go back to this book. You will find he has mentioned something amazing. He says from this you can understand shiddat al-taqiyya of the time of Imam Musa ibn Ja'far.
Wow.
Look at the extent of taqiyya. To the extent where he had to write a letter condoling a mother for the passing of a disbelieving son, and he started to describe him with specific descriptions.
Wow.
So here we understand shiddat al-taqiyya. So don't be surprised when, for example, he comes to Harun, he says to him, Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen, as one word throughout the whole conversation, or when writing a letter of condolences,
So
etc.
just as we wrap up, if you can give us the events that led to the poisoning then of Imam al-Ka'b.
Imam Musa ibn Ja'far alayhi afdhalu salati wa salam, of course, because of this state of taqiyya he lived in, it was difficult for the Abbasid caliphs to come close to him. Hence why you find his imamah lasted a very long time. 35 years. 35 years is a very long time of imamah compared to the other imams, especially at his time.
Yeah.
So you find Musa ibn Ja'far in this state, but there were two specific events where I don't want to say he didn't want to use taqiyya, but the issue was too clear and he was forced to not be in taqiyya. The first is when Harun came to the grave of the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he said to him, Assalamu alayka ya am, peace be upon you, O uncle. Imam Musa ibn Ja'far comes close to the grave and he says, Assalamu alayka ya abba. Then he turns around to Harun.
How is your father?
Sorry?
He says, how is your father?
Yeah, how is he your father? He says to him, if the Prophet was to come and ask for your daughter's hand in marriage, would you give her to him? He said, that would be the happiest day of my life. He said, I can't. Why? Because he is her grandfather. And it's a very famous incident. Harun said, I am going to imprison the Imam. Which is why the narration says, and even that famous line of poetry, قطع الرشيد عليه فرض صلاته قصرا وأظهر كامن الأحقاد. The poet says that Harun stopped the obligatory prayers of Musa ibn Ja'far, and he showed the true hate he had towards him because he pulled him out of the masjid while he was praying. He took him to Basra, to his uncle's prison first, Isa ibn Ja'far ibn al-Mansur al-Duwaniqi. Then he took him to the city of Baghdad.
There was an order for him to be poisoned and killed whilst he was in Basra.
Yes, and he refused because he said, I saw nothing from him but worship, etc. There
was another prison that actually the guy became Shia. The guard.
Fadhil ibn Rabi'?
I think so, or something like that, yeah.
Fadhil ibn Rabi', that's the second prison he went to. He was truly in awe of what he saw in terms of the ibadah of the Imam.
And he saw Imam Ali in the dream.
He saw Amir al-Mu'min in the dream. I'm not sure, I haven't come across this. However, he was in awe of the ibadah of the Imam to the extent where he would even he didn't even put him in a proper prison, if you like. He put him
house
in
arrest.
House arrest, not even, it was in a place that is considered to be a prison next to the palace. However, he allowed him to go out in the open air and to pray, etc., to the extent where that issue with Harun, when he says, look, what do you see there? He says to him, I see a garment on the floor. He says, no, that is Musa ibn Ja'far in sujood. That happened in Fadhil ibn Rabi''s prison. So he also refused to kill him. He went to Fadhil ibn Yahya al-Barmaki's prison, third prison, until he went to Sindi ibn Shahik. Why did he go to that final prison? That final prison that he went to is because of a second event that happened with Harun. He says to him, I want to return Fadak. It's as if he wanted to, he imprisoned him shwaya, and then he said, do you know what, I'm going to now relax some of the tensions. Imam Hussein ibn Ja'far said, leave it, I don't want Fadak. And طبعا this incident also happened with al-Mahdi al-Abbasi, the father of Harun. Happened again. He said, leave it, I don't want Fadak. No, I have to give it to you, I have to give it to you, I have to give it to you. After that, Imam Musa ibn Ja'far said, look, if you really want to give Fadak, I will not take it except with its coordinates. He said, fine, what are the coordinates? It was the whole Islamic empire. Harun said, ما بها مجال. يعني this is going to cause a danger upon me. And therefore he put him in the prison of Sindi ibn Shahik. So these are two events where he was forced to be out of taqiyya that caused him to then be in that state. He goes to the prison of Sindi ibn Shahik. This is a dungeon where he was not even able to tell day from night. And the description of that prison is a long description. But however, since we are on the topic of taqiyya, towards the end of that time when he was in the prison of Sindi ibn Shahik, one of his closest companions, who was also the companion that received his janazah on the bridge of Rasafa in Baghdad, by the name of Ali ibn Suwaid, he had sent him letters asking him questions, etc. The Imam replied to them in taqiyya. This is what I said I will mention towards the end. You might ask me, how do you know he answered them in taqiyya? Did you read the answers? Look at the final letter he sends to him. He sends him a letter, and if you don't mind, I'm just going to read 2 lines from it. He sends him a letter in which he says to him, كتبت تسألني عن أمور كنت منها في تقية. Before he had sent me a letter asking me about specific issues, I was in taqiyya in those issues. ومن كتمانها في سعة, and I wanted to conceal them. فلما انقضى سلطان الجبابرة, now that the government of the oppressors is going to vanish from his life, from the life of Musa ibn Ja'far. وجاء سلطان, the Sultan al-Azim, and the governorship of the great governor, meaning Allah Azza wa Jal, is now coming towards me. بفراق الدنيا, how? With me leaving this world. المذمومة إلى أهلها. العتاة على خالقهم رأيت أن أفسر لك ما تسألني عنه. Now I want to give you the meanings of that which you had asked me about. مخافة أن تدخل الحيرة على ضعفاء شيعتنا من قبل جهالتهم, out of fear that those who are weak in their faith, our Shia who are weak in their faith, that they will have some sort of doubts. That is why I now want to expand on my answer for you to get the true answer. فاتق الله. So fear Allah, and look at what he says after, which is very important. فاتق الله عز ذكره وخص بذلك الأمر أهله. And even this, now that I'm out of the state of taqiyya, even these clearer answers that I'm going to give to you, be fearful of Allah and don't share them with everyone. Not everyone would be able to handle them. When? In a time, so Imam al-Kadhim spent his life in taqiyya, except when it came to the prisons of Sindi ibn Shahik, where it was definite that he is going to be killed. Now, to some of his close companions, not everyone, to some of his close companions, he would give the clearer answers.
Ahsantum Shaykhna. It seems like I genuinely had a lot more questions, especially when it comes to the life of Imam al-Kadhim alayhi salam. But unfortunately, the show is coming close to an end. So we want to thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
I'm not sure how long you're here in the UK, but inshallah, many communities here can benefit from your presence.
Jazakumullah khair. Thank you very much, and thank you for having us.
Ahsantum Shaykhna. So after the break, inshallah, we are still going to be dedicating some words in regards to Imam al-Kadhim alayhi salam and his martyrdom.
السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله. السلام عليك يا ابن رسول الله. السلام عليك يا ابن أمير المؤمنين وابن سيد الوصيين. السلام عليك يا ابن فاطمة.
May your heart be at ease, O servant of mine. I am your Mulla al-Hussein. I am the stranger of Karbala, and you are a stranger in these moments. Whoever visits my resting place, I visit theirs, and if they were put in hellfire, my intercession would spare. Did you not visit me after every salah? Did you not cry for me and wail for me? Did you not call out, Labbayka ya Hussein? Did you not call out, Labbayka ya Hussein? You have a right upon me, O my servant, and here is where you will take it, so do not be scared. O Allah, I beseech you in the name of my mother Fatima and her broken ribs.
Let the light of Ziyarat Ashura bring tranquility to the graves of your deceased. By contributing to the Husseini message, a recitation of Ziyarat Ashura will be in the name of your loved ones who have passed on. Let their names be mentioned by the grave of Aba Abdullah al-Hussein alayhi salam one final time.
Welcome back, dear viewers of Imam Hussein TV 3. You are watching Morning Baraka, a show today dedicated to the life and legacy of Imam al-Kadhim alayhi salam. Imam Musa ibn Ja'far al-Kadhim was one of the illustrious Imams who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had set as an example, a paragon of moral excellence. Each member of this noble family possessed cardinal virtues. Naturally, in some individuals, a particular virtue is dominant and more conspicuous. The seventh Imam excelled in tolerance and forgiveness, so much so that he was entitled Al-Kadhim, the suppressor of rage. Never was he heard speaking roughly or harshly to anyone. Even in the most unpleasant situations, he's seen smiling, bearing the pain gracefully. This was in accordance with the saying of his ancestor, Imam Ali alayhi salam, that the faithful keeps his grief confined in his heart with a smile on his face. One state official of Medina was a persistent source of harassment to the Imam. He even used abusive language regarding Imam Ali alayhi salam. But our seventh Imam always directed his followers not to retaliate in the same abusive manner. When his manner became too rude to be tolerated, Imam's followers sought permission from the Imam to retaliate against him. The Imam appeased them, promising to decide the matter in his own way. Pacifying his followers, the Imam went to that particular man on his farm and treated him with such noble benevolence that the man felt ashamed of his conduct and subsequently changed his attitude and conduct. Explaining his policy to his followers, the Imam said basically, or Imam asked, "Was my behavior better than the methods you suggested?" As to what may have led to his final imprisonment, we find that it is stated by Al-Fakhri that there were some of the relatives of Musa ibn Ja'far alayhi salam who were envious of him and carried false reports about him to Al-Rashid, saying, "The people paying him the khums, or 1/5 of the property, are accepting the imamate and he is about to revolt against you." After many years of imprisonment and house arrests, he was eventually put in a Baghdad prison under the watchful eye of the cruelest person named Al-Sindi. Narrations state that the Imam died in his prison and as a result of poisoning. His corpse was put on Baghdad's bridge at the order of Al-Sindi ibn Shahik. And there are two reasons that have been mentioned for why the Imam alayhi salam's corpse was exhibited in a public place. One of them was to show that the Imam died of natural causes, and the other was to refute the view of those people who believed in the Mahdawiyyah of Imam al-Kadhim alayhi salam. After finding Imam's martyrdom, the Shia gathered for a funeral and buried his body in the Quraysh cemetery of Kadhimiyyah. Imam Rida alayhi salam said, "Anyone who visits my father's grave is like the one who visits the graves of the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam and Imam Ali alayhi salam." Of course, we end this particular show dedicated to the life and legacy of Imam al-Kadhim alayhi salam by showing you going live, especially when it comes to the dua of Tuesday, from the shrine of Imam al-Kadhim alayhi salam in Kadhimiyya. And of course, we end this show by saying, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, make the beginning of this day of mine righteousness, its middle prosperity, and its end success. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله والحمد حقه كما يستحقه حمدا كثيرا، وأعوذ به من شر نفسي إن النفس لأمارة بالسوء إلا ما رحم ربي، وأعوذ به من شر الشيطان الذي يزيدني ذنبا إلى ذنبي، وأحترز به من كل جبار فاجر وسلطان جائر وعدو قاهر. اللهم اجعلني من جندك فإن جندك هم الغالبون، واجعلني من حزبك فإن حزبك هم المفلحون، واجعلني من أوليائك فإن أولياءك لا خوف عليهم ولا هم يحزنون. اللهم اصلح لي ديني فإنه عصمة أمري، واصلح لي آخرتي فإنها دار مقري، وإليها من مجاورة اللئام مفري، واجعل الحياة زيادة لي في كل خير، والوفاة راحة لي من كل شر. اللهم صل على محمد خاتم النبيين وتمام عدة المرسلين، وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين وأصحابه المنتجبين. وهب لي في الثلاثاء ثلاثا، لا تدع لي ذنبا إلا غفرته، ولا غما إلا أذهبته، ولا عدوا إلا دفعته. ببسم الله خير الأسماء، بسم الله رب الأرض والسماء، أستدفع كل مكروه أوله سخط، وأستجلب كل محبوب أوله رضا، فاختم لي من منك بالغفران يا ولي الإحسان. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وآله الأطهار. اللهم
Hussein from London. We're very blessed to be in the holy land of Karbala. Please pray for us and pray for everyone who do wish to go.
Assalamu alaikum, brother. I want to pay my respects to Imam Hussein and Mulla Abbas from my
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، ثم الصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين، حبيب إله العالمين بالقاسم المصطفى محمد وعلى آل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم والعناء